In this video, we will explore the ancient Egyptians and their relationship to archery. Ancient Egypt, land of magic and mystery. It should come as no surprise to know that Egypt still fascinates and mesmerizes us thousands of years after its decline as a power in the Near East. With an increase in food production, due to the cultivation of lands in the floodplains left behind when the Nile receded, the Egyptians built an enduring civilization. With the building of civilizations comes the desire and in many cases the need to protect it. The Egyptians were very familiar with archery. Since the dawn of time, hunter-gatherer societies have used the bow and arrow to hunt game along the Nile. The ancient Egyptian period may be broken down into three main flourishing and stable periods, followed by the bad times, times of economic decline, famine, and misery. Many pharaohs and dynasties came and went through these eras, but one thing remained constant: the use of the bow and arrow. It was a crucial tool from pre-dynastic times through the ages of the Three Kingdoms and into the Christian and Islamic times. The ancient Egyptians first used simple self-bows made of wood. They are described as quite long, about 1 to 2 meters in length. They are depicted as having recurved tips, like some of the other bows used by hunter-gatherer tribes of Africa. A composite bow was later adopted in the New Kingdom after fighting off invading nomads from Asia known as the Hyksos. The invaders also introduced chariot warfare, which the Egyptians readily adopted into their own army. The upper ranks of society made up the chariot corps. Typical chariot units consisted of 2 horses pulling the chariot into battle, with one driver at the reins and an archer wielding his composite bow and spears. After finally defeating the Hyksos, the Egyptians were much more aggressive in the security of their borders, launching incursions in all directions. Ramses II, considered to be the greatest of all pharaohs, marched his army into Syria to engage the Hittites. His campaign culminated in the Battle of Kadesh, most likely the largest chariot battle of all time, with an estimated 5,000 to 6,000 chariots being involved. The ancient Egyptians fought many battles with the intention of keeping their jealous enemies from settling in the Nile Valley. Their enemies were referred to as the 9 bows. The number 9 was not taken literally, as their enemies had changed over time. The number 3 was synonymous in Egypt with plurality. Therefore, the number 9 could be interpreted as the plural of plurals, which was an expression used to describe the entirety of the empire's enemies. An Egyptian bow was ritualistically broken before battles to help ensure victory. 9 bows can be seen on a pair of sandals that were discovered in Tutankhamun's tomb. When the pharaoh walked about, he would be symbolically stepping on Egypt's enemies. The Egyptian composite bow, like the bows of the Eurasian nomads to the north, starts with a core of wood. The belly or side of the bow facing the archer was reinforced with horn from the water buffalo. The length of the bow was then wrapped in sinew. All of this was held in place by a glue derived from the bladders of fish, which makes an excellent slow-drying adhesive. The Egyptian composite bow is quite elegant and unique in its shape. Unstrung, it forms a flattened W, with the handle pointing outwards and the tip sloping up gently. When strung, the bow takes on a triangular shape, and at full draw it smooths out into a lovely arc. We know about the shape of the Egyptian bows because of some very well-preserved bows that were found in the tomb of the boy pharaoh Tutankhamun, which we will discuss shortly. Another indirect source from the shape and scale of the Egyptian composite bows comes to us from wall carvings and paintings. Of particular interest is the wall art found inside the mortuary temples of pharaohs, most notably Ramses II and Ramses III. Ramses III is thought to have reigned from the 26th of March, 1186 to the 15th of April, 1155 BC, and is considered the great last monarch of the New Kingdom. He oversaw the Egyptians engage invaders from the sea, known as the Sea Peoples. With tenacity and archery, Egypt was able to hold off the invaders to a certain extent. Yet the wars and pressures of the Bronze Age collapse had weakened Egypt significantly. The following images are from the wall carvings from the Temple of Ramses III at Medinet Habu. They show the pharaoh and his archers holding their ground against the massive enemies. The next image is from the Great Temple of Ramses II in Abu Simbel, located in Upper Egypt near the border with Sudan. They are situated on the western bank of Lake Nasser, about 230 kilometers southwest of Aswan. The exterior features magnificent rock carvings, and the inside of the temple complex is replete with wall reliefs. This particular one is of the pharaoh at the Battle of Kadesh. The battle is generally dated to 1274 BC from Egyptian chronology, and the earliest pitched battle in recorded history, for which details of tactics and formations are known. The triumphant pharaoh is infamously depicted riding in his chariot, his powerful bow at full draw. A brief video on Egypt and their relationship to archery would not be complete without the mention of Nubia and her archers. Tasseti was the name given to the area of Nubia by the ancient Egyptians. Tasseti in Egyptian means land of the bow, and there was indeed good reason for Nubia to be called by such a name. Archery in Nubia goes back thousands of years. Nubian archers are depicted in rock art from the late Stone Age, approximately 10,000 to 4,500 BC. Archery was especially important for hunting during these prehistoric times. Other than metals such as copper and gold, Nubia's most traded and valuable commodities came from the hunt, typically with the bow and arrow. This included a wide variety of animal hides and ivory. Their skill with the bow and arrow had impressed the Egyptian elite, and the Nubians were recruited into the ranks of Egyptian armies. The first recorded instance of the Nubians being used as mercenaries was by Wene, a general of the 6th dynasty of Egypt during the Old Kingdom of Egypt around 2300 BC. Nubian archers would be a feature of the Egyptian military for thousands of years, and eventually the Nubians themselves would conquer Egypt in the Third Intermediate Period, ruling most of Egypt proper from 744 to 656 BC. The time of the Nubian rulers was known as the Nubian dynasty, the Kushite Empire, or the Empire of the Black Pharaohs. The Nubians readily adopted Egyptian writing, art, and culture. Across time, the Nubian bow had evolved from a simple self-bow to a smaller composite version over the centuries and millennia. The form of the Nubian bow on rock paintings takes the shape of a self-bow of approximately 110 to 150 centimeters in length. The timing of the exact transition between the self-bow and the shorter composite is not currently certain. The Greek historian Herodotus describes this bow in his famous work The History, and his description indeed matches various pictograms and art related to the bow from this time. The length of the bow is described by Herodotus to be 4 ells, or roughly 200 centimeters in length. Like many other self-bows of the Africans, the Nubian bow did not have nocks for the string. Instead, the string was secured to the tips by being tied to the bow via leather straps. It seems that the designers of these early bows did not want to weaken the structure of the tips. It was during the post-Meroitic period, approximately 350 to 600 AD, that a composite bow came into widespread use. The Nubians were always a militaristic people. Powerful neighbors such as Egypt and Assyria kept them on their toes. The military forces of Nubia centered around infantry, primarily the archers. Mounted warfare on horses and even elephants, as well as chariotry, gained prominence in the Meroe period. The Nubians were under the dominion of Egypt during the New Kingdom, and there was much trade and intermingling of the populations of Nubia and Egypt during this time. The Nubians even took to worshipping some of the Egyptians' gods, such as Amun. Egyptian art, architecture, and much material culture was absorbed by Nubia. However, as Egypt weakened and entered its third intermediary phase, the Nubians would take hold of the reins of power in Egypt, forming the 25th dynasty. They once more reunited Upper and Lower Egypt, as well as their own lands to the south. They would rule from approximately 744 to 656 BC. Eventually, the growing influence of the Kingdom of Kush and the aggressive Assyrian war machine would put them on the path towards war with each other. The Assyrians would drive out the Nubians and briefly take control of the Nile for themselves. What did the infamous Nubian archers look like? Well, luckily for us, the Nubians, as well as their Egyptian neighbors, were the artistic type. They made pictures, carvings, and models of many things, not just of their gods and pharaoh, but of simple everyday life. One of the more interesting finds in Egyptian archaeology as it relates to Nubian archery are the wooden models of Nubian archers. They were found in the tomb of Meseti, who served as a governor official in Asut during the Middle Kingdom. Among his trinkets that would accompany him into the afterlife was a spectacular wooden model of Nubian archers on the march. They are wonderfully painted, highly detailed, and well preserved. They are in stride as if marching in a parade. The archers clutch a bow in one hand and a bunch of arrows are clenched in the other hand. They wear red and white cloth skirts and a necklace and a hairband. One of the most known, complete, and well-preserved finds pertaining to ancient Egyptian archaeology is the tomb of the Boy King, the pharaoh Tutankhamun. Discovered in November 1922 by the British archaeologist Howard Carter. It contained literally a treasure trove of ancient artifacts. Carter was meticulous in his records and accounted for around 5,000 individual items in the tomb. Also, as our luck would have it, 46 bows of various kinds, as well as quivers, arrows, and other archery equipment were buried with the pharaoh. Some of the bows were simple wooden self-bows, while others were magnificently crafted and decorated Egyptian composite bows, fit for a king. Some interesting and expertly crafted artifacts from the burial include a double-limbed composite bow and an elaborate, highly decorated bow case. Take care, and thanks for watching.